Hey everybody, I'm going to just do our regular inviting and we're going to get started. And as you can see, I am traveling, or you'll be able to see in a moment. Just inviting. Okay, alrighty. Doing a little bit of inviting. So listen, I'm traveling today, and so I want to welcome you all this morning, or this afternoon rather, everywhere. It's afternoon everywhere. I'm tripping. So listen, I want to talk to you a little bit about the season that we are in. Hey love, hey everybody, thank you for saying hi as you join in. Thank you. Let's talk about this new moon that we're in. We just had a Taurus new moon on yesterday. It was the new moon. I don't know if you could feel the new moon, and how many of you are Tauruses, or you know that you have Taurus in your chart? How many of you are earth signs, and you know that you have some earth in your chart? Very important for you to be aware of this season and why this season matters for you. How many? I'm going to give you a chance to just put in there, like if your sun sign is Taurus, just drop that in the chat, that your sun sign is Taurus. If you know where your moon sign is, if that's Taurus, or if you have an earth sign, because this is a very, very significant transition. Actually, the Taurus new moon season, especially Taurus going into Gemini, is a very significant time for the woman every year. So it's not just this particular one, but let me tell you what makes it different. This year, Taurus is moving, Uranus is moving into Taurus. So not only is it a new moon, but there's also several planetary shifts. You still have some activity happening with Saturn. Now listen, I'm not getting into a whole lot of the astrology pieces, because I know there's so many people who say that they don't understand what all of that means. That's okay, because I don't want you to get thrown off with that. I want it to be significant for you as a woman, because a lot of times we can feel these things and these shifts, but we don't know what's happening. And a lot of times when you have especially if you haven't, if nobody taught us these things, heck, I didn't know. It's taken me years to be able to know the significance of what this means. You hear me talk about this all the time, that we are secular beings. Women, we have cycles, and so our cycles alone put us on a clock. We are the original timekeepers. Oh, Rhonda, I need to tell you about that. Yeah, honey. If you know where your Chiron is, that's real good, because you will know what lessons you have to move through in your life. Thank you for sharing that. I think my Chiron might be in Taurus as well. I have about 5 planets in Taurus, which speaks to a lot of my work and the work that I'm supposed to do. So anyway, I'll get off track if I start talking about my own chart. So Taurus, listen, I used to ask this question. How is it that Taurus is the sign of abundance? It's a sign of being a money magnet. Taurus energy is a fertile energy, and I didn't understand how the bull could be connected to Venus the way that the bull is connected to Venus. And so, you know, as you continue to study your craft, you learn things, and a lot of times things are not written in a book. You have to learn through a teacher. You know, the Bible says, how will you hear except that the teacher be sent? A lot of times we think now in the age of information that we're supposed to get everything just by going online and Googling this shit. And it's not always accurate, and it's not always true. And you need to, when it's time to learn the ancient arts, you really do have to be connected to other masters. And so one of the things that I learned is that because the bull was used to plow the fields. So when it comes to farming, owning land, owning livestock, your bull was very, very important in the grand scheme of things. It was the original engine that allowed you to till your soil and manifest your crops. In addition to that, Taurus energy is governed by Venus, okay? Is governed by Venus. So that means that this new moon, if you find yourself thinking more about matters of the heart, if you find yourself being more sensitive around wanting a mate, horny, being super horny, this is the time to leverage that energy. Now imagine this. If you are a woman who is cut off from your sexuality and your sensuality, that you have shame and guilt around who you are as a woman or what your desires are, you start to develop for years a shame and guilt relationship. Hey, everybody that's saying hey. You start to develop a shame and guilt. There we go. I think I'm back. If you can see me. I think we're up in the mountains right now. Okay, it said interrupted. It said interrupted. I wasn't expecting the broadcast to be interrupted, so my apologies on that, but we're going to keep it going. So imagine if you are a woman who's lived with shame and guilt in any way related to your sexuality and your sensuality. So now you have these desires. And have you all ever heard of a term called womb choice? W-O-M-B, womb choice. This is where the woman always chooses. Now, when it comes to our sensuality and our sexuality, fertility and abundance, what's the connection? This particular season is also, a lot of times when we think about sexuality, we just think about the act. We just think about getting busy. But sexuality is a total system, just like your sensuality. So when we start to talk about the senses, you have to look at not just this sense, because our senses have been numbed. Our senses have been deadened in many ways when it comes to our sensuality, when it comes to our even our physical senses. So it has been numbed a lot of times. So this is a season that if that applies to you, it's perfectly okay to reawaken these parts of yourself. Let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me right now. Because I want to give you some tools. I want to give you something useful to do for this season. Because thank you so much. Thank you. Taurus and let me say it correctly. Uranus moving into Taurus is significant because it's going to be there for 7 years. 7 years. What that means is a lot for love, for sex, and for business and money and career. Because this is also your livelihood. It's about your relationships. It's about the possibility of marriage for some people. It is the possibility of divorce for other people who have been settling, or those who have been shut off in their relationships, making decisions. This is not the time to settle. This is not the time to back up. This is not this time only comes around if you're living in this time. If you're living during this transition and this transit, you want to leverage it. Because why? Somebody say why? Why do I want to leverage it? I'm so glad you asked. You want to leverage this time. I have so much to tell you guys. So you goddesses, really. There's so many things why I'm moving, why we're doing what we're doing. You know, my birthday is next week. So anyway, you want to leverage this time and this season from an inside out perspective. You want to leverage this time and this season because depending on where you have been in the last 5 to 7 years, I want you all to think about where you have been in the last 5 to 7 years. Because when it comes to transitions and stuff, just like this one is going to happen for 7 years. Let me give you an example. Sometimes we could be going through a season that feels heavy. It feels like nothing is moving. You're doing everything right, but then quote unquote right. You're doing all of these things. Some of you who've been on the spiritual journey, you may feel like you've been doing it for a long time. Well, for some people, that's why I asked who has Taurus, who knows where Taurus is in their chart. I can give someone a spontaneous reading right now if you know where Taurus is in your chart. It doesn't have to be your sun sign, and oftentimes that's the misnomer, is thinking that it is your sun sign, but it doesn't. And I can tell you a little bit about how that's going to show up for some of you for where it is. So I know I have a Taurus sun in here. Happy birthday to Carol. She just celebrated her birthday. So this is going to be a very abundant season for you, Carol, and especially because your sun is in Taurus during a Taurus season. But it's going to show up for you differently for someone who, for instance, has a Taurus rising or a Taurus moon. So it's going to show up different for different people, so that we're not doing just a blanket statement. But for everybody, for the collective, this is going to be a season where either you're going to stabilize in the areas that you've been looking to stabilize. But here's the key. This is the most important key. You have to have been doing the work already. That's what Aries represents. See, we just moved out of one transit into another. So you have to look at the transit before Uranus, right? And so you have to have already been doing your work, because this is the time to tend your crops or to plant new seeds. So for those of you who are looking to tap into your sensuality, your point of attraction in a different way, not just for sex or not just for a lover, but for the things that you love, the doing the work that you love, for ways that you've been hurt in love, for Love literally is the overarching thing. So matters of the heart matter. Getting to the heart of the matter matters. The Taurus energy also governs your throat chakra, ironically. And I tell you all this all the time. When it comes to your sensuality and your sexuality, a lot of times we don't make vocal what's really going on, even when it comes to the point of desire. And it's very important for those stories that you have been holding on to, for the things that no longer have been serving you, for you to do a more deliberate work, to do a more deeper dive. Why? Because this particular energy is a very it's a seductive energy of mother. Let me explain what I mean by that. A lot of times when it comes to mother energy, we only will promote the nurturing mother. But this Taurus mother is mother energy that nurtures herself. Taurus is the mother energy that mothers herself. She mothers other things, but she is the priority. This is why Taurus energy is governed by the energy of Oshun and Aphrodite, the sensual goddesses, the fertility goddesses. This is very important because those of you who tend to put other people in their needs in front of yours, you probably need to have a conversation with yourself to find out why you do that, because a lot of times it's how you look for significance. Some people still have their sexuality wrapped up around it's just for the man, it's just for the lover, it's not for you to be able to heal yourself, to manifest. So this is why this is a good season to talk about sensuality, sex magic. And this is why we're going to do these specialized classes. And so tell me what you think. You know, next week is my birthday, and I had planned to teach the head doctor class on a Thursday, on the 3rd or the 4th Thursday. And I was thinking about just doing the series, just doing like a 3-day series, not much, just a small contribution, and really just kind of get in there so that you can spend the rest of your summertime playing with some of the concepts. And so by the time that before summer ends, we're able to really dive a little bit more into the magic. Because remember, even though, you know, this is just a 28-day cycle that we are focused on when it comes to the moon, remember, this is 7 years that this particular transition is happening. This is really good news also for earth signs. Let me tell you, Taurus is the most sensual of the earth signs, because Virgo is not the most sensual type of earth energy. Capricorn neither is Capricorn energy typically. It's more based on loyalty and performance and managing performance anxiety for those signs, but not for Taurus. It's very unique in that way. This is why when you think about it, you're talking about fertile soil. You're talking about indulgence. A lot of times we have guilty pleasures. And I notice that a lot of times when women are experiencing something they really like, you should on yourself. You say, well, I shouldn't have this and I shouldn't do this. And I want to, one of the things that you should know about Taurus is it indulges unapologetically. The shadow side of Taurus energy, however, is greed, gluttony, Taurus energy has to manage greed, gluttony, laziness, being slow moving, very, very stubborn, very stubborn. It's not an energy that moves easily. It's like, how could I describe this? Okay, you know, like the bull, when you look at the bulls, right? You see them when they're getting ready to charge on something, they move their hooves like this. But when they start ramping up the energy, they are forced to be reckoned with. That's what Taurus energy is. It's slow moving energy. So this is also a time to slow down a little bit. And if you have that hustle mentality, if you come from a real urban environment, slowing down is really foreign to some of us. But sensuality is intended to be slow. That's why foreplay is so important. Also, for those of you who have experienced molestation, rape, abortion, miscarriages, or any type of sexual assault, those wounds are wounds that you want to heal. You really want to dive deeper into things that you've pushed under the rug, so to speak, because it has a life. It has a life. And even when dead things, dead things grow life on it. If you don't properly dispose of dead things, it'll start growing other things. And that's the case with some of us. We have not properly disposed of certain things. Some of you have held secrets, have held on to the scarlet letter of even for STDs. There are so many women who, because of having herpes or any gonorrhea or anything like that have absolutely felt sexual shame and not fully able to open up to your own self. So the Taurus energy is like that Oshun energy that must check the ego. You must check your ego. Ego is anything that separates you from your divinity, that eases God out. And so when we talk about sex magic, there's no sex magic in just performance. There's no sex magic in being greedy and possessive of others. And if you have been cheated on, if you're one of the ladies who've been cheated on, quote unquote cheated on, I don't like that word, but I use it because women are talking about it. Listen, if you don't think you are special or know that you are special, let me tell you something. All you got to do is watch something like the Red Table Talks that Jada Pinkett is doing. Don't look at her, but look at the comments. I think my friend PJ Cannon said she just is so surprised at how set behind so many women still are mentally, emotionally, and sexually. And when you look in sometimes in the comments, there's a temptation to take on some of that stuff, but it's not yours, particularly if you are doing your work. And so this is also the season when you talk about goddesses like Oshun and Aphrodite, and goddesses who owned their sensuality, sexuality, who had their senses awakened. They unapologetically, they could see, they could smell. See, you can't properly be the priestess of your household if your senses are dulled. And you don't allow yourself to indulge and to stimulate all of your senses, right? And so when you look, there are a lot of women who are only stimulating. This is why some people they love sweets. They got to have a lot of sweets. Some of you, even if you need to have a lot of crunchy things and ice, usually there's something that you are looking to satisfy. And your food will tell you a lot. Your diet will tell you a lot. Your appetite. Because this particular energy controls your appetite. How many of you have a sex drive that is off the chart? You need it. And how many of you who haven't had it, or you're in marriages where the sexual energy is lacking? I had a woman recently, I might have talked to you all about this, who confessed to me that she has been married for 10 years, has 3 children, and is not sexually attracted to her husband. He's a good provider, but she is not attracted to her husband. Now, I'll say this. A woman like that is going to do one or two things. She's either going to die mentally, emotionally right there by taking care of everything else because her life force is not satisfied, or she will possibly stray and have another lover. But one thing for certain, and two things for sure, there's a level of self-betrayal that many women take for granted that is happening in households throughout the world, of women who are betraying themselves in the name of security. So see, here's the thing. Taurus energy is about security and feeling secure. So the way you heal the places that you are looking to be secure is you got to face the places where you're insecure, where you're afraid to be alone, where you don't think you're enough, where you don't even participate in self-loving or masturbation because you don't think that you're enough to give yourself pleasure or to name your pleasure, where some of you still have heavy duty judgments about. I've also counseled with women who were turned on by watching porn with other women, but they liked being with a man, but that was their turn on. But they had so much indoctrination from religion that they literally had beat themselves into a pulp about what their turn-ons are. So I want to encourage you to do this. Remember, whenever there's a new moon, it's not like the full moon. The new moon requires for you to take action. Today is the day, because you don't want to be lazy about looking at your desires, writing your desires, stimulating your desires. I want you to look at 5 turn-ons, 5 guilty pleasures. And 5 is Oshun's number. Look at 5 of your top desires. 5 top desires that are important for you during this season. So, and I want you to really just spend time writing it, getting a visual of it. And if you can, consider developing your sensual avatar. What is your sensual avatar? And if you get a chance, post your sensual avatar in the comments. Find a picture, find something that is, meme, I don't care what it is, and post it in the comments. So I also want you to tell me if you would like to do just a back-to-back 3-day session so that I can plan it for either next week or early in June. Because remember, I'm really feeding and dealing with community right now. This is a lot of these things I'm doing. I haven't opened it up to the public fully. So, and I'm telling you, if you've been walking with me or just watching periodically, I'm telling you now, if I personally invite you to something because I know you have been sending me notes or asking me about certain things, this is the year to get into it. Let me tell you why. The rites of passage is going to be remixed. These little small offerings that I'm doing, I will not be doing them as much next year. There's some things, of course, I do want to share with you that have opened during this season. I am the living evidence of this season. I am the living testimony of this season. And I'm so excited and grateful and humbled by it. And so those of you who've been slow and moving your feet about doing something, even if you are a juicy butterfly and you've been considering doing the rites of passage again, I don't even know how to say this. Like, take advantage of the now season. So if you want to interview and you want to take advantage of getting into the rites of passage, the second thing that I want to say to you all is this. If you're a juicy butterfly, I'm going to be doing a special video for you all. Let me know what you're into. Next week, 3-day back-to-back, or the beginning of June after Memorial Day, when you've had a little summer fun. So just let me know. If not, we'll just do one session this month, the head doctor, and we still got plenty of time. And then the next two will be on some more sex magic and manifestation. There's some other things that are very specific to our relationship with men, that I want to do a special piece on as well. So, I want your feedback. This season really matters. Please post if you haven't had a reading from me. This is a good time to get a reading. And this is a good time to know what's going on for your chart. Let me close with this and tell you why. A few years ago, I had my own reading a few years ago. And I found out that I was in a transit season. I was in a season of Saturn transit personally, which meant that certain things were going to roll out and happen in my life in a certain way. You got to understand that sometimes it's not that anything is wrong, but we move through transition and phases in our life in certain seasons. And sometimes when we say we're going to do something later, look at some of the old people around you. Look at some of the seniors around you who said that they were going to do it later. Sometimes we have a small window to make major decisions for our life that will affect us for the rest of our life. So stop waiting, stop putting off, stop trying to wait for circumstances to allow you to do something. I want you to think about this season right now. If you were a fruit, would you pick you? Because that's what juicy is about. You know, I wrote a whole article called "If You Were a Juicy Fruit, Would You Pick You?" right now. Right? Because a lot of us are still waiting to be picked, waiting to be chosen, waiting to be anointed, waiting to be designated, waiting to be chosen. And that shows up later on when you do get chosen. You still will be waiting for permission for you to release your sensuality and your sexuality. So I may come back in and do a small supplemental later, because there's some things that I just have to break down into some small nuggets. So I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. All right. I'll talk to you all later.